What's up, everyone? Welcome to Bluegrass State of Mind, the show where three college roommates talk life, sports, and all the ridiculous things that happen in an apartment we like to refer to as Room 302. We're bringing you stories, hot takes, and the kind of late-night debates that probably should have stayed in the group chat.
So grab your headphones, sit back, and get ready for a wild ride through our past college life, sports, and everything in between. Let's get into it. This is Bluegrass State of Mind.
Welcome back. This is Bluegrass State of Mind. Well, Kentucky over the weekend hosted the number one team in the nation, the Auburn Tigers, with a final score of 94-78. Woo. Fellas, well, we got a lot to dive into tonight, as always. Just a couple of things, though, before I send it over to you all. A couple of just important things I wrote down is, I didn't realize this. I know that we talked about it lately, that Kentucky hasn't been full strength. And there was a stat that I got, that I gathered, that we've only been full strength 7 out of our 28 games. That's not very many at all. That's talking everybody on our roster. We've only had them for 7 games. The last win that the Auburn Tigers had coming into Rupp, which I know a lot of people heard that stat, was in 1988. And then at Rupp, they were 52-2, which is now 52-3. So there's a little bit of history to this game with the Auburn Tigers, and especially Bruce Pearl, too, coming into Rupp. He's not had the best record, but Colton, take it away. I know you said you got a lot for tonight, so let's get into it.
Yeah. I have a lot of mixed emotions after watching the game. Really, I'll just say it. Obviously, the injuries they played a big role this year. I don't think anyone's denying that. We haven't been at full strength, and that's tough. So it makes me sad because a lot of these guys are 5th-year seniors. As we just found out, Jackson Robinson is done for the year. That's really tough to swallow. Because I think a lot of hope was kind of okay, we played most of the season without Kirk Krissa. Right, so I think you've learned to play without that. It's hurt your depth at point guard position, but I think everyone was okay, as long as Butler and Robinson and Carr are all pretty much healthy whenever the tournament starts, then we'll take on and see what we can do. Obviously, Robinson's done for the year. Butler does not look the same.
Not
especially, I saw something that he said that he was at 85-90%. I don't believe that. Especially on the left side, because how many layups did he miss on the left, going with that left arm? Short-armed it, and you could just tell maybe it's not able to get as high as he wants to. He can't his release point, everything just kind of throwing him off. With all that being said, Auburn was way above here, and we were way down here. And I truly believe that even with the full lineup, Auburn was winning that game. Or they're beating us at least 7 out of 10 times. Because here's the thing, that they beat
more.
us, right? They beat us by, what was it, 18 or 16 was the final score, something like that.
16,
They beat us by 16, and that's without their National Player of the Year that's averaging 23 points a game, doing pretty much nothing.
Well, he didn't score in the first half, and to go in a little bit more depth about that, he didn't have a single field goal the first half. It came off a free throw.
Exactly. So, so you can sit there and say, oh, we didn't have Robinson. If we'd had Robinson, this would have went the other way. Or you can say, oh, well, they banked in threes. Obviously, they had one guy that went off that, not normally like that. But also you can sit there and say their national player didn't do a whole lot and all these different things. So really, I think my biggest takeaway was I'm sad for not only the injuries that we've had to go through. I'm sad that we will be entering the tournament knowing that we are not on the same level as some teams. And the Cinderella story is always there. I do think we have enough talent, and based on the seeding we're going to get, that I think we can make a Sweet 16 run with the talent that we're going to have and the seeding we're going to have. But it is tough to watch that game and sit there and say, man, you hope that you don't run into one of those teams, which is not common for UK basketball to sit there and say, we don't want that team.
Yeah. And
So
one
y'all
thing I
take it
do want to
away.
add, though, I want to add to that before I send over to Mason is, you sit there saying how much better Auburn was. If you look at the stat line and you just look at points, we had Andrew Carr 20 points, Amari Williams 13 points, Bray at 21 points, Lamont Butler 15 points.
Biggest
Four of
difference
our
is the bench.
Yeah, but I'm just saying though, it wasn't like we had one guy have 20 and then the rest of the guys have like 9, 8. Like we had a pretty good balanced score in there. It's just like Colton said, we are not on the level of Auburn. We're not.
And I agree. I mean, Auburn is really, really good. I saw where their Ken Palm rating is something like 36.92, and the 2015 Kentucky team was 36.91. So their Ken Palm rating is better than our 2015 team, which I don't necessarily believe that they are better than our 2015 team. But the way they're playing right now, and the way they're beating people, I mean, they're really, really good.
They're all around from their guards to their bigs. They can attack you at all three levels and they can score. And I mean, they're that good.
With that being said, we had 18 turnovers. We shot 4 for 17 from the three. Like Colton said earlier, I mean, we missed a ton of layups at the rim. I remember Oweh missing a couple. Butler missed several. Like you said, I think that brace is really limiting his mobility and the way he's able to move that left arm. We had 5 total bench points. 5. They had 29. All right. They had 8 assists on 29 made field goals. We had 12 assists on 23 made shots. So, I mean, to me, it just boils down to they got people that can go make plays. That's what that team is full of. They got several guys that can go out there and get you a bucket when they need it, and we don't have that.
Yeah.
And part of it, like we've talked about, is injuries. I still a little bit of a devil's advocate. I think if we're healthy, we can compete with Auburn. I don't know how many times we beat them out of 10, but I mean, like I said, we had 18 turnovers, and I'd say 50% of them were unforced, just us doing dumb stuff.
I would say more than 50%. And we've been talking about this for weeks. Our turnovers are they're terrible turnovers. They were careless, silly,
nonchalant.
yes.
That's the biggest thing that's driving me crazy right now over these last few games. Just some of those mental mistakes and mental aspects of the game that are pretty easy to clean up that we haven't done yet for a team full of upperclassmen, which this late in the season, I know they've been through a lot and we're missing guys and other guys are having to step up. But I mean, you've been playing college basketball for a long time. Those are mistakes that you should not be making at this late in the season, at this point in the season. Going into the SEC schedule, though, I mean, I said I'd be happy if we went 500 with how tough the SEC was. We've had a limited roster, and we're probably going to finish at 500. I don't think it's been. I know it's not really what Kentucky fans want or the standards that we're used to in the SEC, but based on everything that's kind of happened and went into the season, I'm not disappointed, but I'm not really happy either. It's kind of like a so-so. We kind of did what we could with what we had. And I'll throw it over to you, Dylan, before I get into some more stuff. But
yeah, I think for me, like you all said, the injuries, it's devastating to see. I mean, you want to see your team at full health because that's where you base your potential on, is at full health. But taking aside the players out of this, and just like we didn't make shots really. We had 1 3. That's not who we are. We have to make threes. Colton said previously we had to make more threes than them, and we wasn't even close. So I mean that also doesn't help. But just kind of shifting gears for the coaching aspect of it, I can't continue to harp on this more, and I know that we all have agreed and said this, but Pope has got to stop subbing so fast. He's got to stop it, and I think that so far, the consistency, he is consistent because he continues to do it. Which, I mean, it's not, I guess, in a sense of, oh, what is he going to do this game? Because we know it's coming. But I just am in total disagreement because we subbed at the 16-minute mark before the first media timeout. And that we were in the game. And I'm not saying.
It was 5-4, I think, when he subbed.
And then that's whenever it just went haywire. I mean, they just exploded. And I saw Matt Jones' tweet too, and I think everybody knows that is just like, these guys can handle this. Like, it's not like they're like gasping for air. Like, why are we doing this? Like, is he afraid that we're going to get somebody else hurt? But at this point of the season, that's how the roof, like, other than Lamont Butler, Jackson Robinson wasn't even playing. We have got to keep in our guys who are going to go out there, battle, and win us games. And I don't think that that's what we're doing right now. Hold on, let me finish, and I'll send it over to you. And the last thing I want to say is, I am so impressed with Amari Williams. That dude plays his abs. Not that everybody else doesn't play their heart out, but he affects the game in so many ways. And I agree with what you sent us in a text message, Mason, saying that Amari Williams could be the number one pick if he could shoot at all. I mean, his defense, his body, he's finally starting to get a feel for inside the paint. He's I think it was his 11th double-double maybe that he had this season. But, I mean, I'm really loving what I'm seeing from Amari Williams. But go ahead, Mason.
I just have one question. What do you think our lineup needs to be right now? Because, I mean, Amari Williams played 31 minutes. Andrew Carr played 28 minutes. Kobe Bryant played 38 minutes. Lamont Butler played 32 minutes. And Oweh was in foul trouble, and he played 20 minutes. I mean, I just feel like it's hard right now because of the injuries. Like, we can't throw anybody in there that really can keep up, with that level of play, but they also can't play 40 minutes. I mean, Kobe Bryant played 38 minutes, and almost every other starter played 30 minutes. It's just, it's hard right now, and I get it, but I mean, I don't see what he can do.
Go ahead, Colton. I don't know that I'm in agreement, and obviously that's where the biggest thing with like Kerr Krissa has happened is the depth at the guard position. But I'm like Dylan. I don't know that it's necessarily needing more minutes, but it's at the point of the game. For me, it's not even like playing on more minutes. It's the you subbed right before the 4-minute timeout, so you were at 4 or 5. So why don't we get to the 13-minute and then make that, or why don't we get to the 14-minute, even another 2 minutes, and avoid that run happening? And that's just been the thing, is like, we're coming off playing really good for a 3-minute stretch, and then we sub them out. And I'm like, if it would have went 5 minutes, who knows if the game's different? And that's my only thought towards it.
I compare it to this, Mason. Like, this is from a coach. When I was coach, I would always hate this, and especially as a player, I'd hate this. And I don't know if this is a good comparison, but it's kind of like whenever your team's on a run, you're the team that's on a run, and then your coach is the one that calls the timeout. Yeah, it's a good probably breather, but why are you the one calling a timeout after you just scored another basket? Because you'll see that all the time. I've never understood that. You're on a run, you go up and you score 3 timeout. Like, it's just unnecessary. And I think that that's kind of where I'm coming from, as well as Colton. You are too, maybe, that in the fact that it's not that we're saying maybe that, like Colton said, they need to play more minutes. It's just when we're doing it, it's not the best, I feel like.
I agree with that, but I don't know. I think he's just in a tough position right now, and really struggling to figure out rotations. And I mean, you can't pull them all out at once, So if you pull one out, try for the media timeout, and then put another one back in, or pull a couple out, I know he's trying to keep that lineup on the floor, but it's just, like you said, the guard position's so depleted right now with Krisa being out, and now we got Robinson out, and Butler's not 100%. It's just, I don't know. It's tough right now, and it's tough to watch sometimes. I get that, and I think he could do better with when he subs. But I know it's got to be difficult. I mean, at this point in the season and what you're dealing with, I don't really know what I'd do in this situation,
Well, I mean, and it's also difficult because, Mark Pope, I think he's a smart guy. I mean, I think he knows what he's doing whenever he's putting his guards in. And, he immediately, when he subs Perry in, there's no doubt in my mind that he's sitting there knowing that, okay, I mean, he's going to get exploited right here. Like, they're going to drive by him because, I mean, even like Jay Billis was even saying there, and he wasn't meaning in a bad way. He was just saying, yeah, Travis Perry, I would say Bruce Pearl right now is trying to put Travis Perry and just let his guys go, and they're trying to go at him, and that's what they've done.
100%.
And, like, that's what we talked about. I just think that I agree. It is really hard, but we have got to find better timing on when to sub. Unless our guys are saying, hey, I need a breather. But I've not seen that. I have not seen that yet.
Yeah, I'll pose this question and then I'll answer. But for future purposes, going beyond this year, what did you take most from this game? And then I'll go, but I want to, Mason, what did you, after watching it, was there anything that you took from it? Because there was things I took from it. I think that was one thing that made me more
What are you
worried.
asking?
I'm
More
saying so.
coaching
Like
or more
we
players?
Can I answer?
we watched this game. So yeah, I'll let you answer first. But I watched that
So
game
I think from
and
my
I thought to myself,
don't
go ahead.
yeah. I think from my end, the amount of talent that Auburn had and the amount of talent that we did not have is something that worries me. That for future we have got to get those guys, whether they be transfers, whether they be freshmen, the amount of talent from 1 to 11, whoever they brought in, it was scary because that's who we used to be, where the teams were, we knew what we was bringing off the bench, and, and I'm not taking anything away from Trent Noah, Travis Perry, those guys, and your Ansley Amino, but those guys are not the guys that Auburn was bringing in. That's one of the biggest things I saw.
I agree, and that's kind of like what I said. We're depleted, but our bench points, 4 to 29. Like, and granted, I think it's not like Auburn has a bunch of star freshmen, stud freshmen. They just went out and they got some older guys that were killing in college basketball and got some transfers. Janai Broome, he was at Morehead State, you know. I think part of that has to do with, we've talked about it a lot, but Pope had, 3.5 weeks a month to put this roster together, and I want to ask you all this question too, after watching this year. And this is in no disrespect, no foul means to anybody, but do you all think Trent Noah and Travis Perry can cut it here for the next 3 years? Do you think they're the type of guys we need in order to, athletically, obviously they don't have it. I think they could be good, solid, like 8 to 10 minute guys maybe, but that's my biggest thing after this game.
Yeah.
It's guys like that. And I know, like I said,
I
short off season to get a team together, first year kind of is what it is. But just watching that game, they're going to be liabilities, more so Travis Perry than Trent Noah going forward every time they step on the floor.
Yeah, I think Trent Noah actually can. I think Trent Noah is one of those guys that you got to have on your team that's a glue guy that comes in and gets those rebounds. He reminds me of he's not as big as him, but that guy for Alabama, it's I forgot his name. It's their glue guy though. I can't remember, but he's one of those guys that's going to impact the game. And the reason why he impacts the game is because he gets all those rebounds.
Right.
Trent Noah rebounds the ball great, and you've got to have that type of guy on there. He can play pretty solid defense. I would say no to Travis Perry, though. And the reason why is because it's not that he just can't guard very well, but he just can't bring the offense because of his size. And at this level in the SEC, you've got to be able to do that. You've got to be able to finish. And, even Mark Sears is not the biggest guy, but he has found ways. And I know that Mark Sears is he a fifth-year senior or is he just a regular senior? I can't remember. But that's the only worry that I have with Travis Perry.
Colin. Yeah. I talked about this yesterday. I said this, if Travis Perry or Trent Noah or even Colin Chandler, if they ever become one of your top 6 players, then we're in trouble. If one of those guys can be one of your top 8 players or 9, then you're in a better position. But if any of those 3 become one of your top 6 players, you probably ain't got the team. And that's just the honest opinion. That's what worried me, is because let's say Kirk Krista comes back next year, because let's say he gets a medical red shirt. We return, and let's say everyone else who is eligible to return comes back. That's 6 guys returning. I don't see, out of the 3 freshmen we're bringing in, I'm like you. I think maybe Jasper Johnson And Moreno might get a little bit time as a backup center, but my guess is we'd probably bring in another center. So the thing is take the 3 freshmen we bring in and the 6 returners. How many of those 9 players that we're going to have do you really think can compete in that type of game we played Saturday?
Yeah,
and that's going to be 9 of their players on their team. And I take away maybe Jasper Johnson, right?
I'll take them too.
Well,
and so we have to bring in these other 4 or 5 transfers.
Has to.
And there's no missing on it, right? You can't afford to, because the rest of the guys you are going to fill your roster with cannot play with those teams for the next 4 years.
And if we're going to ever get back to that level, though, it's like what you said, Mason. It wasn't that, Auburn didn't play. I guess if you were to look at the scoreboard and the stats, I mean, you wouldn't actually say they played team basketball. Like they only had 8 assists. They only had 4 and 4. They had 4 in the first half, 4 in the second. But what they did have is they had some hoopers. They had some guys who could go get their own. And you can call it what you want. It's great to have team basketball. The Warriors were team basketball. But whenever they had Steph, KD, and Clay, they could all go get their own. And we have a bunch of guys on this team right now that can play team basketball. But we don't have.
We have one, maybe 2 people that can go get a bucket when they want.
Yeah, mate. Yeah.
One of them's hurt.
I would
one
say
of them's out the rest of the year.
maybe 2. I would say one. Honestly, I would say Oweh is our only one who can actually go get a bucket. But Oweh's everywhere. He don't have an outside shot, so that kind of limits him. So that's the one thing that we have to figure out. We've got to get some guys who are just straight up hoopers that can go get their own. Now, I think Jasper Johnson could be one of those guys. But right now on this team in March, I don't know necessarily that team basketball is going to win you many games in March, and that's just how the game is now. It's different than what it was.
You know what they say, guards win in March. And I think this season is probably an eye opener for Pope. Just coming to this different level of athletic ability and the way that basketball is played in the SEC. And I think he's going to have some tough conversations this offseason with like Colin Chandler. Like you said, I think Trent Noah could be a great glue guy for us. He plays hard. He rebounds well. But like Colin Chandler, Travis Perry, I think he's going to have some tough conversations with them this offseason, just saying like, hey, look, you are great basketball players. You played well this season. You helped us out. You fit my system well. But this is a different level in the SEC. And in order to get this program where we need to go, I got to find guys who can compete on both ends of the floor and go out there every night and give us a bucket. And like
that's
said,
a little worrisome, though. And you know why? Because Cal could always do that. Cal was never afraid, and Pope is always portrayed so far as Mr. Nice Guy. So is he going to be able to have those conversations and do that? Or is he going to? I agree. He better.
And look, and that's I think that's the biggest thing. And that's one of the reasons why I was kind of just so many mixed emotions. I think Pope has done a great job. I think between the injuries, between the short period of time to throw all this together, all those things, I think it has. But man, you talk about watching how that game played out yesterday. And then I started seeing all these tweets online about, man, after that game, the media, like, it's like everyone was like, if this team wins one tournament game, it's been an A+ year. And man, and I don't disagree with that, really. I'm not disagreeing with that, but man, that is sad. It's sad to be a Kentucky fan and look at that and be like, if we win one game this year, like that's their standard now. And so I'll give it past this year. I am, for sure. With the injuries, it's the first year. But I'm like you, Mason. If it wasn't an eye opener, and that's something against him, but I think you'll be able to, I think the pressure is going to be added, because I think it was an eye opener to him. It's like, this can't be it going forward, right? You can get it this year, but if it has to be different going forward, or else those conversations are going to heat up real quick.
The fans are going to, yeah, I agree. And so another thing though, yesterday was the ref. And, I've seen a lot of people talk about the technical foul and the SEC refs, which is kind of going to segue into our next segment here. So let's get into that. So first off, I want to shout out Donald Geralds down from Elbow, my kinfolk. This is kind of where this originated from. So I was reading a post that he had made about essentially what he was saying was, why don't we just take out fouling out of the game of basketball? Because in no other sport can you actually be that I guess a bigger sport that I'm aware of, that can you be taking out of a game unless it's something like unsportsmanlike that causes you to get thrown out of a game. And, you kind of said, I mean, in football, you can get as many penalties as you want. In baseball, in hockey, in basketball, you can't. You can't do that. So that's what we're going to kind of talk about. I'm very interested because this is something I've never really thought about. And after reading, I was like, wow, that's something interesting to talk about. So, Coach, and I want to hear your initial thoughts on that. Taking out fouling out of the game of basketball.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting conversation. The only thing I get to thinking of though is obviously you have a certain amount of team fouls you have to get to before you get free throws, right? Whereas every single penalty in the NFL is costly in some way, right? But the first team foul of me reaching in, if there was no fouling out, does absolutely nothing except work towards an eventual free throw, right? So there's no punishment towards it. Whereas every single penalty in the NFL at least gets you a little closer, or there's yardage or something to that matter. So I'm not against it. If you want to increase maybe the number of fouls, like the NBA's at 6 fouls, I think the college plays, you're players playing way more minutes and at probably a more, I would say, I wouldn't say faster pace, but they do play at a faster pace in a lot of ways. Right, because the NBA is more methodical. A guy's going to bring it up, and he might just go one-on-one, gonna break them down. But for the most part, college plays at a faster pace. So if you want to make it like 6 fouls, or to me, do a quarter reset, right? Or maybe you go to quarters. I'd rather see that done to where or a half reset. Say if you get more than, like you get 3 fouls per half, or you get 4 fouls per half. If you want to increase it, I get it that it doesn't happen in other sports, but at the same time, there's no punishment for the first 6 fouls in this sport, unless it's a shooting foul. So you could sit there and just, if they're driving by you, if there was the case, you could just foul them without them getting a shot up, and there's no penalty on you. I don't like that. Like the thought that there's free fouls and no consequences. So,
well, I don't know how this would, but. And Mason, you may correct me if I'm wrong, because I could be wrong, but I know the high school in Kentucky has changed its fouling system. And it changed last year. Mason, do you know? Do you know?
I think it's 5. I think it's 5 per quarter, right?
Yeah,
and it's in the bonus.
Yeah, it's 5 per quarter, and which So I'm gonna go ahead and talk a little bit, and Mason, I'll say over you. I think that as far as what you said, mate, or Coaten, yeah, it doesn't do any harm to the team, but you can maybe add an incentive of, okay, if you foul, then the other team gets to shoot 1 free throw. So now, also, if you were to do that though, then that you're talking about the time of the game, because going for a free throw. I think that if you could figure out some system, and I'm not saying that would be the fix of a free throw for every defensive foul, but I'm just saying find some type of incentive in that. I think that would help, because obviously the game flow would decrease a lot. It would be worse than it already is, because right now we're seeing games go over and not even being able to watch them because of that. But I think the pros outweigh the cons for me on this, and I would actually would maybe like to see this. And the reason why is because you take your star players. Just take Owe, for example, this past Saturday. He's our best player right now on the court as far as from the guard position, and you just take him out. And it takes all your star players out of the game, which nobody wants to see. I mean, just imagine that you're in the national championship game, and let's just take a Duke fan, and Cooper Flagg has 3 fouls in the first half. Now, the opposing team, yeah, they would love that, but as far as just for the viewership, nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to see the star players out of a game. And I think that outweighs the cons. And I don't know how you could do it. I don't know what incentives you could add, but I would not be opposed. And I know a lot of people would not want to do this because basketball has always been 5 fouls. I wouldn't even be opposed to what you said, Colton, about making it six fouls. Maybe let's just try that before we even take it out completely and do 6 fouls. But something has got to change, in my opinion, because too many times we're seeing your best players get taken out of games, and sometimes those fouls are just ticky-tack fouls, and they're really not fouls at all. And I hate seeing that from a fan's perspective, not just on my team, but any team. You don't want to see that.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting topic. I don't know how you would do it, kind of like you all said. It's going to change the game completely. If you do something like that, I think you would see the game become less skilled. People not having to worry about fouling out defensively wise. I think, it's just going to, like you said, I think it would probably extend the length of the game some. Teams fouling more. I think it does. There needs to be some shift with refs. Because I feel like they are controlling a lot of games right now, and we're not there to watch refs. We're there to watch basketball, right? I think the game's already become a lot more physical, but you would see it become even more physical with this, right? And I don't know the exact, mix or what you would need to do, but I feel like the rhythm, the tempo of the game, all of that would kind of be thrown off, when it's first established, depending on what they do. But my biggest thing with this that I kind of got to thinking about, I don't know that you ban fouling completely, but there's obviously an issue right now in basketball, college basketball, with refs and kind of how they control the game or they affect the game, right? And I think there needs to be something established. This is probably another topic for a different day, but I think there needs to be something established to hold refs accountable. Some type of grading system, something where they're fined if they don't get above a certain grade, something to hold refs accountable, because at this point, like we've said, Oway picking up 3 fouls. Maybe there were great calls. Maybe there were questionable calls.
Well, in the game before that, Butler was in foul trouble and had to be sit out the whole time at Oklahoma. So, I mean, it's affecting our team right now because we can't stay out of foul trouble, or that and the refs.
The Alabama game, officiating was horrible. Something obviously has to be done about officiating, and I don't know what the answer to that is, but I don't know. I mean, I guess you could try it at some level. G League's a completely different game, but you'd have to try it at some level first and just try different stages and see what works. But I think the first step we need to take is just holding officials accountable in some way.
Yeah. Well, I get to thinking about this too, and obviously maybe somebody say, well, they don't play defense. No, let's not do that. Let's talk about this. You think about the NBA. How many guys, when you're watching an NBA game, do you ever get subbed out because they are in foul trouble? It doesn't happen really. And it's not because I really, truly don't think it's because they don't play defense. I mean, it's not like a guy goes to college and let's just take Oway. Oway fouls a lot. He does. If Oway goes to the NBA, it's not just going to be a transition. He's like, okay, now I'm going to stop fouling. No, that's not the case. Something, and I agree, Mason, that's a good point. It might be something with holding the refs more accountable than what they may already be at. But something, I agree, something has to change on the fouling, because I am tired of seeing so many good players have to sit down in crucial games, because especially in the SEC, every game is a big game right now. Colton, any more thoughts on that?
No, I mean, y'all hit. Who knows what the solution is? I do think
like
part of air foul. I do think part of air foul trouble is probably because we're behind on a lot of things guarding.
Yeah.
I do think there's a lot of reach-ins. There's a lot of coming up. We are terrible at trailing ball screens.
And that just comes back to having those athletes and having those guys.
Yeah, I mean, it does. It really does. And so who knows the solution? Obviously, you don't want to see anyone get in foul trouble and take away from the games like that. But, me, where that comes into play more than anything is you need to build a deep roster, right? That you can go back to that, and people, because that would probably be the argument from the league. If you don't want your stars out there being in foul trouble, build a deeper league. Look at Auburn. Janai Broom had 2 fouls with like 10 minutes left in the first half. He kept him out there. He could have easily picked up his 3rd foul. It wouldn't have mattered. They didn't even need their National Player of the Year out there, right? And so to me, that probably would be the answer in response by a lot of teams.
Yeah. Well, it's a very interesting topic. I think it might be something that maybe could eventually happen. Maybe starting small with going into 6,000, then who knows? Maybe eliminating it completely. But we'll see. We'll see. All right, let's go on to our next topic for tonight. What golfer is the worst type of golfer to play with? And I'm going to say the 5 golfers that we have, and then I'm going to send it over to Colton to talk about which one he would think is the worst, and then kind of maybe elaborate. But here are your 5 typical golfers that we have, or no, excuse me, I'm saying 4 typical golfers. You have 1, the slow golfer; 2, the rule follower, who always follows the rules; 3, the overconfident or the bragger; and then your last one is the always late golfer. I think this is going to be really fun. Colton.
Yeah. So do you want me to just choose one and
Yeah,
then
choose
break
one
it
and
down?
then break it down. Choose one and then break it down a
Okay.
little bit, and we'll feed off of each other.
So for me, I'm going to go with the slow golfer. And the reason I say that is because I would play with anyone. It don't matter if they shoot 67 or 120. Just don't be slow. You can shoot 120 fast. You can.
Yeah,
Right? It's one of those, especially depending on the game. There's nothing
you
that
can
makes
do it
me
very fast.
there's nothing that makes me more mad than, say, we play a game out at the course on Saturday mornings, and say we have 4 players on the team. Everyone's playing their own ball throughout the round. Every hole you take the 3 lowest scores. So there's nothing that makes me more mad than having 3 guys that are putting for par or in the middle of the fairway, and having someone that is obviously about to take at least a 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Right. And they're taking their time on the putting, or they're taking their time on hitting their next shot. And I'm not
Yep.
saying like for them to be out of the hole. I'm not saying for them to pick up, but to me, like if you blast it out of bounds, grab another one, blast it out there somewhere again, get up and hit it up there, chip it onto the green, realize, okay, these guys are going to pick me up this hole. You can take an 8 on the hole and play it in 5 minutes, right? Like that's
Well, I think
to
there's
me
also a
my
difference.
biggest thing.
I think there's a difference between being a slow golfer and a bad golfer. Like those are 2 complete different things. I mean, you can obviously be a bad golfer and slow, but I think what we're tending at though is just the slow golfer who might be good.
Yeah,
That is
yeah,
still
and
slow.
you're right. I'm not disagreeing with that. The only thing I run into is you're right. You can be a better golfer and be slower. It is hard for me to argue though if a guy plays slow but he shoots like a 67, right? Like if you're gonna be slow, like that would be my one requirement. If you're gonna be slow, you better play pretty good, right? Like I can live with that. It's that's what was gonna be my argument for the always late golfer. I mean, me and DG know exactly who we're talking about when we saw always late, but he literally
if anybody's listening to this, they will know
that he shows up late every time, but he comes out there and he's the best golfer. Like he shoots the best score. So he jumps right out of the truck. He plays fast and he shoots a 66, although he might be 20 minutes late to the tee time.
No warm-ups. Just go right into it.
Right. So it's hard to argue with him being always late because he may be late, but you also hope that you draw him on your team and you're willing to wait. So to me, it's a slow golfer. I'm someone that plays fast, even if I'm not playing good. The ones who read the putts from 4 different angles, the ones that, I just, different things like that. If you're going to play, just play fast. You don't have to be like Speedy Gonzalez or anything. But I mean, there is no reason some things, like if you're reading people who pull out their rangefinders from 30 yards, 20 yards, or things like that, or they're going to read a chip from 30 yards. They're like, if I read this, what's it going to break? Can I make this chip from 30 yards? Come on now. Like, we're out on tour maybe, but
Get them, Colin.
to put that, I mean, I'm just saying, like, come on. Especially the ones that have played out there on the course on pins. If you played there a bunch of times, what are you doing? But that's my opinion.
Mason, are you going to agree with him, Mason, or are you going to do a different one? Because if you're going
to, I can do a different one. I'm
going to do a different one too. I was going to see
but like the slow golfer drives me crazy as well. I mean, I get it. It's a meticulous game. You got to take your time with each shot. But like me, I'm going to hit a bad shot, probably once a hole, every other hole. And the longer it takes them to hit, the more I got to sit there and think about that shot. And it just keeps playing over in my mind. I just want to hit the next shot, put it behind me. It
Yeah.
drives me insane when I'm just standing there. I'm like, please just hurry up so I can get this shot out of my head and try to make a good shot and move on from it.
Yeah. If there's any point of when you're golfing that I feel like, and I don't think I'm really I don't think I'm slow, but I take my time. If there's any shot, it's when I get to when I'm putting. Other than that, I think that, like Colton said, a chip. Like, you're not going to need to get a rangefinder for a 20-yard chip. Like that's I feel like that's unnecessary, and any yardages above that, like you don't really need to take your time that much. But when you get to the putting greens, I feel like, I don't mind if a guy's walking around, and I know you do too, Colton. I know you agree with that. But I think,
and that's where you would take your most time. It's also, I meant to add, like, the ones who don't do anything, like they decide not to clean their club or even shoot the ball range until after everyone's done hit. Right? If you're not in the line of sight of this guy hitting, like if the one's on the right side of the fairway, you're on the left side of the fairway, and he's a little behind you, and he's about to hit, you should already have your yardage shot, and you should have your club out, and you should be waiting. I play with too many guys that they're in their cart sitting, the guy hits, and then they're like, all right, let me get out, clean this club.
It's my time. Let me clear off.
So that's another way.
I agree totally. Mason, go ahead.
So, I mean, one that it's not really like I don't want to say the worst. I guess it is kind of bad, but it makes me laugh. The people that have excuses, like the excuse maker that comes out there and they're like, hey man, right before we tee off, like, man, I shot even par last week, and we get out there and they're 6 over through the first 9 holes, and they start making, oh, my back's hurt today, or I'm trying to change my swing a little bit. I'm just like, cut the crap, dude. Like, you don't have to lie. Golf's a hard game. Why are you lying about it?
Absolutely.
It just, it cracks me up. That there's just some people that I play with, that they want to look good. Then you get out there and it's like, okay, now I know you're BSing me. We can get to the real stuff.
The ones who catch a chip thin and then wonder why it don't check.
Right.
Like why did that just roll off the green?
Yeah,
these
crazy.
Sucked.
Yeah, I'm kind of in agreement with you, Mason. I'm going to kind of piggyback off you. Mine is for sure going to be, I don't like a slow golfer, but for me personally, I cannot stand playing with the overconfident braggart. And let me elaborate more on that. Colton, you've been with me in multiple rounds where me and you both are just looking at each other and we're like, there's no way, just stop. It's whenever the guy gets up there and has 185 yards, and before he even hits the shot, the guy's already saying, yeah, last week I pulled out a 9-iron and hit it 185 and then I flew the green, actually. And that rubs all over me. And, I'm too good of a guy that I'm not going to just call him out and be like, no, you did not. I may have done it once, but that just, I can't. And it's not just with that shot. It's with every shot, because that person who's overconfident doesn't just do it with one shot. They do it the entire round. They'll step up on the driver and say, if I hit this good, should I hit a 3-wood? Because if I hit it good, it's going to go about 320 yards. I could fly the green from here. I might need to grab a 3-wood. And then gets up there and doesn't hit it, but flashes it right 100 yards, tops it, something. That by far, I cannot stand that type of golfer. And like Mason said, just say it how it is. I mean, if you're not good, nobody's there judging you about it.
Oh.
At least I'm not. But don't sit there.
Hard.
Yeah. And then also the other part of that is the bragger, that you can do that, but constantly reminding everybody about it. Like, I shot so-and-so last week. Yeah, I birdied this hole the past 5 times. I bet nobody cares. We're here for this round and this round only. What you do right now is all that matters. So whatever you've done in the past, it rubs all over me. Colton, I know it rubs all over you too.
Yeah, no, that one was definitely my second. Like, no one cares if you rag or not, because the moment that you rag, then, like, I expect perfection.
Yep.
And if you're on my team and you miss a 5-footer or you miss one after talking the way like that, man, I mean, it runs all over me. Sit there,
Yeah,
but
and the difference
that,
between me and Colton is I don't think necessarily me and Colton would probably call him out. Mason, I feel like you are absolutely saying you are calling them out.
Oh, 100%.
Well, Mason, talk a little bit about the rule follower. Let's talk about that one, and then we'll move on to our next thing. Talk about the rule follower, because I've really not had much experience with playing with a guy who is constantly. Colton, you may have, but I want to hear y'all's perspective on the rule follower.
I mean, I've never really played with somebody who's like strictly. I mean, most of the games I play are just casual. We may play for $20 or something, and if it's, if we have a bad lie or something, he may be like, all right, move it a grip length or something like that. We don't play it down a whole lot, unless we're playing for big money or in a tournament or something like that. So I haven't really dealt with that a whole lot, but it would definitely be annoying. If I'm just out there playing around with somebody and it's like, hey, you want to play for $20? Sure. And I hit a bad shot or something, and let's say it's sitting on roots, and I'm like, hey man, I don't want to mess my club up, like, do you care if I just move it to a spot? And nope, you got to play it as it lies. That would drive me nuts. I'd tell him kick rocks, I'm going home is what I would do. Like, we're out here playing for $20. I'm not going to mess up my $600 set of clubs or $700 set of clubs that I just bought. You can kick rocks and I'll go home, or you can give me a 1-stroke penalty. I don't really care, but I'm not doing this with you.
Yeah.
right.
Colton, you probably have played more so with the rule follower just because you played all throughout high school and college.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not against that because, especially when it comes to official tournaments, like
Yeah.
you have to be,
Yeah.
not that I'm someone going to be like, oh, you need to be exactly this. Like I've always been one of those guys that like, if someone hits it towards the hazard, right, you don't find it, I give them the benefit of the doubt, and I'm like, okay, I think it probably went in somewhere in this area. This is where you could take your drop compared to, there's several people that would be like, I don't think it crossed this plane. You got to go all the way back to the tee box. Right. Right. Like I'm not that guy. But I do think in like official tournaments you are. To me,
Oh, absolutely. And I'm not saying that. I want to make that clear.
I think it's the casual games.
Yeah, the
Like,
casual games.
so
Not
like
your tournament. I
the
didn't
ones,
mean to say
okay,
that.
I'll say that. So like a lot of times right before we tee off in our morning games, they'll know, like they'll say, put everything out, right? Put everything out. And I guarantee that you can follow every group. And at some point of the day, someone's going to give a putt in that round. It may only be that far, right? But technically they kick them back. Obviously they weren't going to miss it. You're saving time. I'm not against it. Do you want to break it down to the actual rules? That's where I'm not against. That's where it would get annoying. But now you do have to watch that, because what was a putt that is, 6 inches turns into 2 foot, 3 foot downhill curler real fast. Oh, that's good. And then my favorite part is when they're like, this guy wouldn't be putting them out. This guy wouldn't be putting them out.
And especially when they name drop them, they're like, well, so-and-so, I know they're definitely not putting it out. So yeah.
And then they're justifying themselves being able to pick it up. And all they're doing is turning into the same person that they're saying would pick it up. So, I'm casual in that. It don't make me mad either way. I think you don't need to push it, but it can go both ways of being annoying, but also at the same time, probably not as bad as some of the other things we named.
Yeah. All right, Mason, it is time for some Room 302 stories. We haven't really done this yet, but let's get into a little bit of stories, and then we'll end our night with some Arnold Palmer Invitational picks for the tournament this week. So go ahead, hit us with a story that you have back in our Room 302 days.
Oh man. So this was a fun one. A lot of laughs that happened with this one. I'm sure some of y'all out there remember watching Silent Library growing up. Great show, hilarious, So I think we saw it on TV one day and we were like, man, we should do that. So that's what we did. So, we made up a couple of challenges, drew our cards. Basically they're sitting at a table, they reveal whatever the punishment or the game's going to be, and then everybody flips their card over, and one of them has a little skull, and that means they have to do it. Everybody else has to try to stay quiet, without laughing at whatever's going on to them, in order to kind of win. I don't remember. They ended up winning money, right?
They build up money each round that they don't.
Yeah.
lasted.
So obviously we didn't have the money. We just did it for fun, being stupid college boys. But I mean, I don't remember every single thing that we did, but I remember two that were really funny. One of them was the code, I think,
Oh,
or was it? I think it was the code where we coined him.
yeah,
You ever
yeah,
coined?
yeah. Sitting there getting
So
hounded by chains, just sitting there.
Had to just stand in front of the door, Mason, tell him, let him know what we did to him.
so kind of back to the olden days, like where they'd stone people. We decided to do that with coins. So Dylan had this huge cup. I mean, cup probably this full, this big, full of change. So we just started grabbing coins out of there, and Colton stood in front of the door, and I mean, we were humming those things.
Yeah,
I mean,
nonsense.
I know, he got done, had whelps and spots all over him. Another one we did was the pillow fight to Dylan. So we all got our own pillows. Dylan just had to stand there and take it, and I mean, we beat the crap out of Dylan's pillows.
Yeah,
And I just want to say, we would not have won any money if we did that because we were cracking up. It
Or
was so
crying.
funny. Yeah,
Oh,
or crying.
yeah, Conan had to go to the nurse.
Man.
So he,
He had to take ice bath that night. He had whelps all over it.
oh, wait.
Yeah.
I
Do y'all remember any of the other ones we did?
No.
Here and there, but
Those were the two I could think of.
Yeah. All right, come what you got for room 302?
oh man. So this is a good one. It actually not real funny for me, but it was funny looking back now. So I can't remember exactly why. I really think we went and played basketball at a park. Is the reason that we went to this. But anyhow, we used to go to this Mexican restaurant all the time, and then I think we went and played. Very good. And then I think we went and played basketball one night. And the way that we went to some park, we come back and we stopped at a different Mexican restaurant than we normally ate at. Kind of more of a hole in the wall place, maybe a little sketchy, but it was actually, full in there of people. And I remember, I think I ordered like a burrito with like queso on top or something. And I remember it being very good. Like I was like, oh, you know what, this place, man, we may have to come back here. For sure.
A new spot.
Right. This is a new place. But we get back to the room, and we probably aren't back 30 minutes before, like, I just all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, man, like, something don't feel right. And, I mean, I go to the bathroom, and I end up throwing up. And normally, in the past, I'm like, oh, maybe I just have a stomach bug or something's wrong. And once I throw up, I feel actually a lot better. No, this went on for like 2 hours, nonstop. I mean, I had food poisoning, and I mean, it just went nonstop. I know I had to be loud. I know they were laughing at me.
Oh, yeah. I want to talk to
Because in the apartment,
our
it was
perspective.
loud. But what were y'all thinking?
Oh,
when I was in it?
Whenever you got back, I just remember me and Mason, like, we were like, oh, man, Coach's sick. But it was like, we thought that he was just puking, like it was just you had something bad. And I know me and Mason, we were sitting there, like, just, like, playing, like, noises under, like, just aggravating you, hit the door. And, like, because we were like, oh, he's going to be over it. But like you said, like, 10 minutes turned into 30 minutes. Then 30 minutes turned into an hour. And then before you know it, you was in there for, like, 2 hours. And, like, it was awful. I kind of felt bad. But at the very beginning, it was hilarious because I was just like, me and Mason were just messing with you. We just like, oh, you say something bad. And I kind of feel bad now, though, about it because, I mean, it was bad. Like, you was in there forever, like 3 hours.
It was not great. And I finally took the big trash can that we had in our room, and I took it into my room for the night because in case I needed it. But, so all that aside, you're probably out there thinking, what's so funny about food poisoning?
Oh, yeah, this is hilarious.
So, if you've never had or anything like that, like, I did not crave Mexican for a long time. Obviously, like I have my mindset, and I love Mexican. I was like, but I could not think about it in the same way for a while. Finally came a time that I was like, you know what, it actually sounds good. But we were for sure not going back to that spot. So we were going to go back to the original spot that we had went to several times. That was always good. And everyone's in the back of their mind like, Colton, I hope you don't have another experience like that. And I'm like, it won't. This Mexican's,
legit.
It's legit. And I'd be dang if I don't pull up and we walk into the Mexican restaurant, and outside the Mexican restaurant is a girl just throwing up. right outside the door. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this can't be happening. Like, all confidence I had out the door immediately. Right. I mean, just out the door. I mean, there was no chance. I mean, I didn't get sick though, but I mean,
Oh
in
yeah.
that moment, just to knowing
I wouldn't have done it.
what
Oh,
everyone was thinking,
it
and for
was
that to
hilarious.
happen, I mean, I think I was in tears just thinking like, how could
Yeah.
that possibly happen?
Yeah.
But it was hilarious in the moment.
I felt bad for the girl, but as we were walking in, though,
Right.
we were
I
all
mean,
like,
obviously,
Coach was sitting there, and we were all like, Coach, and that is not a good sign. And Coach just sitting there like, why? Why?
You're braver than me because I would not have able to get it past all that.
I,
I'd be like,
I
nope.
mean, just in that moment, that's just hilarious. It's just one of those things that you're like, if there was a sign of
Yeah.
anything, that was it.
Do not enter.
Yeah.
Well, my story is actually it involves me, Colton, and our other roommate, Chance, who's yet to make an appearance. Hopefully, will soon. But there towards the end of our senior year, we got on a kick of waking up early and going running in the mornings, and then we'd go eat breakfast and then go to classes. Well, we got up one morning and we decided that we were going to run our mile. And in Owensboro, they have a good riverbank, and so we'd always, or not riverbank, but a riverfront. We'd always run to the riverfront and back. Well, me and Chance, we were running, and we were all in our little trio. Us three were running, and we get to talking, and me and Chance were in the front, and Colton was right behind us, and we get down and we start running, and then all of a sudden we look back, and there's no sight of Colton, and we're like, "Where is Colton at?" Well, then we're like, "Oh, he'll catch up." And well, then we start going, and we make it to the riverfront, and we're waiting, and we wait for about probably 15 minutes. Colton is nowhere to be found. So then me and Chase are like, we're not going to wait. We're just going to go. He's a big boy. He can find us. So we continued on, and we get back to the breakfast, and we're waiting. We're already eating our eggs and our biscuit and gravy, and we're chowing down, and we're like, where is Colton at? And Colton got lost. And we were like, we done ran away from Colton. It's like a kid, like your kid's lost. We had no idea where Colton was at. And lo and behold, Colton finally shows up at the room. And we're like, Colton, did you run out of breath or did you get hit? What happened? And he tells us that he proceeded to get stopped by a stoplight, and then he just lost us. And I was like, oh my goodness. We thought, because like anything turns in, like you said, like with the you getting food poisoning. It's funny when it starts happening, but then when it lingers on and it goes on, you kind of get worried. You're like, did something happen? And at that moment, it was hilarious because we had no idea where Colton was at, but luckily he was alive.
Yeah. I mean, I was just hanging back, making sure no one had got y'all from behind. And it wasn't because I was out of shape or anything. It was just, it was just a matter of, then the next thing I know, y'all went on through the little walk sign, and then didn't quite make it before the countdown. The hand popped up. And
Yeah,
then
because
got
we
stopped.
had ran.
Traffic had went on. Y'all were just booking, and
Yeah.
I wasn't exactly trying to be like, hey, stop. I was really
Some
in my
friends
mind.
we are.
It really in my mind. I was trying to think, is there any way I can take a right here and just circle back to the
Yeah.
to the cafeteria right now?
You should have done. You should have
Yeah.
circled back to the cafeteria and been waiting
And
on
so
it.
finally, I
What
just
took
went on
y'all so
ahead,
long?
and I got on down there, and I was like, man, did they turn left? Did they turn right? Are they already heading back?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see him again until we got back. So people were just probably looking at me on the side of the road, just running like, who's this guy?
Who is this guy? And that's the thing. I think it was just weird because we had ran so many times and we'd all stuck together and we were all doing great. And like I said, we were all in shape, but that's what it was. We were like, what has happened? Coach just disappeared.
Tough day.
Yeah. All right, fellas.
Like stuff always happened like that to Kobe.
But
yeah. All right, let's get into our last little segment here. This week is the Arnold Palmer Invitational, played at Bay Hill, Florida, and it's played at the Bay Hill Club. It is a signature event, which means there's going to only be 70 to 80 players. I think I read that's only 72 players. Bay Hill is a long course. It's over 7,400 yards. And it's one of those courses that plays tough. And so go ahead, kind of give us your picks, talk a little bit about it. Let's go, Mason.
So my favorite this week, I like Ludwig Oberg, not Aberg, Ludwig Oberg. I think this is going to be his breakout year on tour. I think he probably has 3 to 4 wins this year. I think he gets a major this year. I think he's in fine shape right now, playing really well. He obviously has the talent. But I really like him this week. You know, he already has 1 win. What was it, 2 or 3 weeks ago? So I think he's going to have a breakout year. I like him to play well this week. A couple others, I like Akshay. He's coming off back-to-back strong tournaments. He posted top 10s on both occasions. He's ranking 8th in strokes gained tee to green. And in his last 8 starts around the world, he's wound up with a top 10 half the time. And his worst finish is tied 37th. And then my last pick is Sahith Theegala. He's finished tied 14th and tied 6th the last 2 times he's played here. And he also had a top 20 finish at the Genesis, so I think he's hitting it well right now. He obviously likes this course, you know, based on the last 2 times he's played here.
Yeah. So for me, I think obviously I always want to pick Scotty. Scotty has won this tournament 2 out of the past 3 years, and the year that he didn't win it, he posted a tied for 4th. So I mean, that's the guy that I obviously want to pick, but I'm not going to pick him. I'm going to go with Rory as my favorite right now. Rory, it said I read a lot about him, and over his past 10 career appearances here, he has never finished out of the top 30, and that includes the 2018, whenever he posted 8 consecutive top 20 finishes. So, I mean, the guy has just got a good feel for this course, for this tournament in general. My second favorite is going to be Justin Thomas. Mason, I know you're big on him.
My boy.
I just think that he is tracking. He's playing the right way. And I think he's found his game again. And then my sleeper for this week is going to be Russell Henley. Russell Henley is he's played in 5 events this year, including this past weekend, and he's posted 3 top 10s. So that is my sleeper. Is big old Russ. I like the way that he's been playing. And something that I do think that the audience needs to know a little bit about this course in general, and Colton maybe can elaborate more too, is that this course requires a lot on your second shots, your approaches. Most of the approaches, I was reading, it said 70% of them come from over 150 yards. So your approach shots are going to be a big factor this week.
Yeah. I think it's a ball strikers course for sure, which is why Scotty has won it 2 out of the last 3 years. Obviously, he'd be my favorite. We won't even count him. If he's teeing it up, he's my favorite. My top 3 would probably be, I'm going to go with Patrick Cantley as one of my favorites. I'm going to go with Colin Morikawa as another one, and then I'm going to go with Hideki as a third one. And my sleeper for the week is probably going to be like a Tom Kim. So I just think that he's gained a little bit of distance, which will help him out on this course a little bit. But I think he's due a win, and he's been living up more towards the moments. But I think he's going to be my sleeper for this week. Those are my top guys. I really like Cantley in these type of tournaments. I think Scotty won it last year at like 12 under.
Yeah.
Right, so it wasn't. It's not something that goes high. It's always the guys that seem to never have really bad rounds. Patrick Cantley's just one of those guys that never seems to have a really bad round. And so as long as you have that, I really like him as one of my favorites, probably to win this week.
Yeah. And then also I was reading something on about the past couple of years. Something that's come into factor with this tournament is the wind. They said that it is always howling out there, and that is crucial because there will probably be one day that the wind is up, and you've got to have, like Colton said, it's a ball striker's course. You got to know how to strike the ball, and even in the thick rough, you got to be able to get it up there at the green. And we'll see. I mean, I think it's going to be an exciting tournament. I am excited that this is a signature event. It was a big event in general, but now that it's a signature event. Yes, Xander is back.
First appearance.
I'll be excited to see what he does.
Yep. Same. I just want to give a shout out real quick to everybody who voted for my team on the poll, taking the crown.
Yeah,
taking the crown.
Yeah. Oh, and Colton done his hat. Yeah, we got our hats too.
Yeah.
Check out the Bluegrass State of Mind merchandise. As always, go Cats.
Go Cats.
That's a wrap for this episode of Bluegrass State of Mind. If you enjoyed the show, Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Also, be on the lookout for our social media pages and be sure to follow them. We've got plenty more stories, insights, and conversations coming your way. And if you really loved it, make sure to share it with a friend. From the hills to the hollers, thanks for tuning in. Until next time, keep that Kentucky spirit strong.